Hey y'all, welcome back to Senai Goes. My name is Senai, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you how I've traveled as a flexible vegan for the last 3 years. Simply put, veganism is a diet or lifestyle that excludes all animal products. No meat, no seafood, no dairy, no eggs, no honey, no gelatin, no leather. The idea of being vegan popped in my head back in like 2016, but for some reason when I first thought about it, it was never something that seemed attainable to me. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, I definitely saw it as just as like a cool aesthetic that I wanted. I was like, I think it would be cool to be able to call myself vegan. I kind of felt grossed out with myself for wanting something so like, just like the title of something, but it ended up that I actually identified a lot more with veganism than I thought. When I first was kind of exploring veganism, I only saw it as this very white, very health conscious, very expensive thing, and I wasn't really identifying with any of those things at the time. That lifestyle didn't seem attainable to me, it didn't seem relatable to me, it just was like this far off distant idea that was interesting. But once I started meeting more black and brown vegans around me in the Bay Area when I lived there, my ideas of veganism and that lifestyle totally changed, and I started to see myself possibly doing that in the future. So I was playing around with the idea of veganism for maybe like 6 months before I took the plunge. So once I started to see it as an attainable goal, I decided, let me give myself 30 days to try out the vegan lifestyle and see if it's for me. I have committed myself to 1 month of veganism. So I'm cutting out all animal products for 1 month, and I'm making the commitment for 1 month, but at the 1 month mark, I'm going to check in with myself and see how I feel. So in March 2017, I started out with a 30-day vegan challenge for myself, and I think before the end of the first week, I already knew this is it, this is my new lifestyle, I'm vegan. Originally, I was drawn to veganism for very surface level reasons. It was just purely the aesthetic of it. I thought it sounded cool. Honestly, I feel bad because it has like not much to do with the animals, and that's why a lot of people go vegan. But once I started to explore the idea more, I understood more about it, I learned why people do it, and all of the reasons and benefits as to why I could go vegan. But the thing that really pushed me into veganism was when I found out that dairy is a huge trigger for eczema. I've been living with eczema for years now. It feels like my whole life, and it's been a nightmare. Eczema sucks. So my interest in veganism started out really surface, then my reasonings became very selfish, and then after that is when I started to understand the environmental impact of veganism and how much I could be reducing my carbon footprint by taking out certain things in my diet. That was something that came after. It was sort of like this awesome perk to like these other things that I was interested in. So for me though, it kind of just all made sense. If anybody's wondering, my eczema did really clear up once I got onto my vegan diet, and in the times that I have eaten dairy, it comes right back. I promise this stuff works. So if you have eczema, consider a vegan diet. Okay, getting into the fun stuff, how I travel. Every year for my birthday, I take a birthday trip. Side note, if you are interested in following me on my last birthday trip, those videos are on my channel. I'm gonna like link them wherever and down below. My first birthday trip since going vegan, we had decided to go to Mexico, and I was like, I'm not going to Mexico as a vegan, that's ridiculous. I didn't want to miss all the way out on all of the amazing, incredible Mexican food that we were about to experience, so I decided to go vegetarian. I was lucky enough to have a nutritionist at the time, so she helped me transition back to a vegetarian diet by slowly reintroducing dairy into my food. I think it was 2 weeks before my trip to Mexico, I just started maybe with the first meal, and then throughout those 2 weeks just slowly kept adding more and more until I was eating a regular vegetarian diet. Also, the mom was really calm. Since that Mexico trip, I have traveled this way through 4 different countries. It was really easy for me to transition and transition back. As soon as I land back home, I'm just vegan again. So it's a really easy switch for me, but maybe for other people, they'd want to slowly transition back to veganism. That's fine too. I just slowly transition to whatever diet, I eat however I want there, and then as soon as I land home, I'm switched back to veganism. I traveled the same way when I went to Morocco. I just transitioned into a vegetarian diet right before, and I ate vegetarian on my trip. It was relatively easy for me to eat vegetarian in Morocco, and sometimes I was even eating vegan. But everything changed when we booked our flights to Japan. Now, I had been dreaming about Japan my whole life, so I knew it was gonna be like physically impossible for me to be in Japan and not eat sushi. So I knew I had to switch to pescatarianism now, and that scared me a little bit. It was a little intimidating, but I did the same process. Itadakimasu.
You ever eat bread that makes you want to dance?
I went pescatarian by using the same method to slowly reintroduce seafood into my diet. Well, to be honest, it wasn't that slow. I definitely went all in the first meal and got like shrimp tacos. This whole time I'm vegan, the only thing I've ever craved is a seafood boil. I never even had a seafood boil, like. And for my last trip to Peru, I did the same thing that I did in Japan. I went pescatarian because I had done some research beforehand and found out that Peru is like world famous for their ceviche, and I had to try it, and it was amazing. If you want to see me try the most amazing, incredible, delicious ceviche I've ever tried in my entire life. First Peruvian ceviche. This is mango trout ceviche. It looks so good. Check out my last Peru video. Now, with all of the places I've traveled with this super flexible diet, trying all different types of foods in all different climates all over the world, the only place I ever had a stomach problem was in Peru. But my theory is that had something to do more so with the elevation and less to do with the food. But so far, I've been pretty good with this flexible yo-yo diet, all over the place diet, and I've been able to experience all types of food all over the world. So I don't mind it. Since starting this flexible vegan lifestyle, I still haven't had any poultry, pork, or red meat, but I don't really see that as completely off limits. For example, I know for a fact the second I'm allowed to go back to Belize, I am eating everything in sight. And when I make it to Ethiopia, where my dad is from, I'm gonna want to experience all the food there too. Somehow I forgot to talk about the trips I've taken where I've eaten totally vegan, so I'm just gonna insert myself now. Because my decision to switch from a vegan diet is rooted in not wanting to miss out on international cuisine, I typically save my vegan travel for domestic trips. Since switching my diet, I have been on 3 totally vegan trips. I went to Vegas, Miami, and Vancouver. Vegas and Miami were a little similar in terms of what they provided, I guess, for vegans in the touristy areas, I had a slightly easier time in Vegas than I did in Miami. And I think that's just because Miami is known for its food. It has some amazing authentic food out there, and it's so much diversity in terms of what types of food you can get. I think that typically authentic and vegan don't really go hand in hand. So I think that's what it is out there. Both of them were really quick weekend trips, so I didn't put much research into it. If I'm gonna go on a trip and eat totally vegan, I typically just use Yelp or Instagram, Twitter, all my social media, and I would just search up the places that I'm going, the neighborhoods that I want to check out, and put in the word vegan and just see what pops up. And I typically find a lot of really cool restaurants that way. When I went to Vancouver, however, that was so easy to eat vegan. Vancouver is an amazing city for vegans. There's so many choices. I had a lot of fun in Vancouver specifically for the food. I think my trick to vegan travel is mainly flexibility and a little bit of ignorance, because I'm sure that I've ingested animal products in pretty much all of the countries I've been to. For me, as long as I don't know it and as long as I'm doing everything in my power to avoid it, I just try not to think too much about that. I'm fortunate enough that my restrictions are a choice and I can be flexible with them. I know some people don't have that privilege, but I would say if you can be flexible and you feel like that's holding you back from traveling certain places, that's what I would tell you. My trick is flexibility and a little bit of ignorance. And that's how I travel. For anybody interested in exploring a vegan lifestyle, I encourage you to try it. Veganism doesn't have to be this rigid label. It can be a guide or a goal or an influence on whatever you decide works for you. So eat however you want, have fun. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Senite Goes for more videos like this one. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, everything else at Senite Goes. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
And then they'll see this and they'll be like, if that dummy can do it, so can I.